was natural, you know, in teenage years. Like, even fucking Mike Thurston, supposedly, you know, of course, if he was natural when he was like 15, 16, 17, when he first started working out, you could say his physique was superior to fucking Arnold's. If you wanted to compare them side by side, if they were both, you know, supposedly natural in their early teen years when they were working out, there are a lot of, not a lot, but there are individuals with natural physiques that definitely exceed Arnold's. But Arnold, the way he separated himself is when he got on the fucking Sazul, he exploded like a guy who, you know, you would not expect to, considering the fact that when he was 16, he started working out at 15. So he goes from, after his first year working out, he looks like this, which is, you know, good. He looks fucking good for a 16-year-old, obviously. We get to, this is him at 16, hitting a front double bi. These chicks are looking up in awe of this guy's, yeah, anyway. Here he's at 17, looking like a jacked swimmer. He is, you know, got the vacuum going here. He's got a little bit of arm mass now. You're starting to see his chest take, you know, more development and whatnot. So he's 2 years into lifting at this point. So keep in mind, newbie gains as a natural are done. You know, he's made a substantial amount of progress. He's, you know, lifting hard as fuck. You know, his life revolved around this thing at the time. Now, when did he start gear? Purportedly, you know, by him, I believe it was 19-ish that he was talking about when he started, but the rumors going around was that he started as early as 17, 18 years old, popping Dianables like candy in Germany. And then when he came over to the U.S., he started to incorporate things like Primobolan alongside it. I spill over my fucking computer, but it's fine. And then that's where he kind of, you know, went a bit more exotic with the anabolics to stack alongside the Dianabol. But again, right now, around this time, 17, like, he has a physique that many people would consider, like good. But if you were, even if you were, like, a natural, like, fitness influencer YouTuber, most people would not be like, this guy is, like, the fucking cream of the crop, you know? 2 years into lifting, like, I know certain individuals who are natural, after 2 years of lifting, they look better than this, to be honest. That's not to knock him, it's just to give an example again. The guy who looks the best at baseline isn't necessarily the guy who's going to genetically explode when he takes gear. Now you see Arnold when he starts to, again, here's a 17-year-old shot. Like, these are very good examples of what, you know, natural foundation can actually do in guys who are not necessarily, like, here, obviously, he's, you know, fucking cranking his face off at this point. So he's 19 here, and he gets to, I don't know if he was actually 19 here, because this is a substantial fucking jump. But here he is. No, there's no way he's still fucking 19 here, dude. Like, some of these compilation videos, I feel like, are way off on their timelines. Maybe he is. I don't think he is here, though. Here is a 20. I would believe that. Here he is at 20 again, supposedly. Anyways, as he gets into his early 20s, he's, you know, he kind of takes on, like, prime Arnold shape, and by his early to mid-20s, he's, you know, starting to crank out fucking Olympias, and he's just smoking dudes on stage and looking like, you know, classic sauce fiend Arnold himself. And, but again, relating this back to Patrick is a guy who is the same genetics. He has the exact same, well, obviously he has his mom genetics too, but I mean, a lot of what he inherits is going to be from his dad, and you would expect that the guy would have, you know, similar response to things and have a similar foundation in terms of muscle growth potential. And when you look at it, I don't think he has a bad, you know, foundation whatsoever. Like, he actually looks pretty fucking good, but you can tell if you're going to compare natural to natural or natty versus juice, when you go back to Arnold, back when he was in his supposedly natural years, it's not that crazy compared to some naturals now that you would see at, I don't know, in the fitness industry. Obviously, there are a lot of fake naturals, but there are a lot of individuals who are actually natural. And, you know, sometimes you might not be able to pick them out because it's impossible to fucking tell if somebody's lying unless you elaborately drug test them. But a good example might be Lex Little, you know, the guy at 15, 16 years old looked like a fucking twig, and now he's like 19 and or 20. I think he just turned 20 the other day, and looks insane. You know, when he was 18, 19 though, he made the majority of his progress in the first couple of years and looked like a guy like on gear. Like, frankly, if he posed in some of his pictures alongside 2 year into lifting Arnold, you would think Lex Little looks fucking better than Arnold, to be honest. I know it's a bold statement, but it's like, just look at the fucking photos. It's not that hard to see that Lex Little has more aesthetic photos 2 years into lifting than fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger does. But then, why is it that all of a sudden Arnold blows him out of the water in a fucking year? Because of the response to the Dianabol and the Primobolan. Now, if Lex Little took Dianabol and Primobolan, does he mean he's going to look like fucking Arnold did? No, because there's two entirely different things. Even though you could have a natural who's further along in his body composition progression, or just has a better potential base as a natural athlete, given your endogenous hormone production, everything else that goes into it, your response to exogenous synthetic chemicals is not necessarily going to be the same just based on the fact that you have a better natural physique. So, to me, this was a good example because Patrick is an example of this is legendary genetics. Like, he literally has Arnold's fucking genes in him, and yet he looks like just an athletic, like, surfer dude with abs, you know? I get it by natural standards. This is like, it's very good. I can, acknowledge it's a very good physique. I'm not trying to downplay it whatsoever, but we're talking about in the context of he has Mr. Olympia fucking genetics in his body, you know? He literally has this guy's ball sack produced this fucking guy. Like, the genetics are running in his family down to him, and yet he looks a fraction of Arnold, but he looks, not that dissimilar to Arnold in his teen years. So despite the fact that this guy's been working out for years, he does not build a fucking Olympia caliber physique, but we don't know what his response to drugs is. It could be insane, it could be shitty. Sometimes you have these guys that actually have great looking foundations and they don't end up blowing up. A lot of people don't take into account response to drugs and drug exposure to organ health as well when it comes into the fact of genetics. Everyone just thinks if I have, a jacked physique as a natural, it means I'm going to succeed as a bodybuilder who's enhanced too. Often doesn't play out. How come there are physique competitors who literally cannot grow past like 195 shredded on stage? No matter how hard they crank and try, a lot of them are just fucking stuck and they stay in men's physique because they could not become bodybuilders. A lot of guys in the men's physique division, even though they have literally the best fucking physiques you've ever seen in terms of aesthetic proportions and whatnot, perfect six packs, perfect fucking balanced out delts back, everything looks insane and dialed in. A lot of them are just like failed bodybuilders who could not get big enough for bodybuilding, even though they use the exact same shit as classic physique guys. And their excuse is often, I don't want to use as much drugs. And it's like, maybe that's the case in some cases, but I can almost fucking promise you everyone's tried to push the limit to see what their body can do. And a lot of men's physique guys at the top are just guys who couldn't get big enough to do fucking bodybuilding. That's just what it comes down to. Like Jeremy Buendia, for example, guy looks absolutely insane. Literally the definition of men's physique. But no matter how much shit he takes, he would never be a bodybuilder, That's why he ended up in men's physique. He was a failed bodybuilder, but had perfect proportions for the board short men's physique division, essentially. That's not a knock on him, but that's an example of, like, perfect genetics, but shitty drug response. That's, like, exactly what we see with certain individuals. Now, Arnold is the total opposite, where you see it's not shitty genetics, but it is not, like, the perfect fucking body composition as a natural, but then he takes D-Bull and Breathable, and the guy's a fucking Mr. Olympia all of a sudden. So there's a lot of things that come into it, and I think a lot of people overlook different genetic components of what bodybuilding is. Not only is it your natural foundation, but it's also how you respond to drugs. Like, I remember Dennis Wolf, his transformation, absolutely bonkers when he started taking drugs. One of the most fucked up mutations you've ever seen. In addition, how long can your organs handle the exposure to these drugs? That's another genetic component too. Guys like, there's a fucking mosquito in my goddamn... Sorry. Again, stress to organ systems. Like, this is something that is genetically determined as well. Even if you blow up because you have sick genetic response to drugs, how long can your organs sustain that stress from the exposure to the drugs? Is it something that you can even expose yourself to the drugs because your organs are even going to be healthy enough to fucking survive the duration of exposure? That's the kind of thing that goes overlooked too, and it all comes into the genetic kind of rounding out what is bodybuilding as a whole. It doesn't just play into how sick do you look before you take gear. All this stuff comes into the equation, so to speak, and should essentially be how you determine if this is even something worth pursuing, to be honest. Like, at the end of the day, when you start taking gear, like, I feel like you'll know pretty quick if you have what it takes. Like, you'll start, the guys who really made it to the top, and to be honest, I don't think you should be blasting a fuck ton of shit unless you have the potential to make it to the top anyways. It's like, what are you doing? Trying to become like 260 lean to just fucking walk around on a beach or something? Is that really worth it? And are you even going to get there? Or are you going to be a guy who's blasting his face off just to be men's physique big for your entire life and just chasing fucking plastic trophies at regional bodybuilding shows all the time? oftentimes most guys would be best off just, hanging it up and just, being a recreational gym rat and not taking too much shit and just like enjoying the lifestyle and not trying to abuse their bodies in order to replicate something that they simply will not ever be able to do. And this is more of like a reality check video than anything, because again, I see a lot of people abuse the fuck out of their bodies trying to get like Arnold big, trying to get, some top bodybuilder big, and it's just never going to happen because they don't have that genetic response to the drugs, even though they might think, oh, I had, in high school I had a sick physique. Like, I get DMs all the fucking time where it's like, what do you think of my genetics? Like, I don't know, dude. Like, I don't have fucking imaging of your organ health right now. I don't know what your fucking androgen receptor density is. Like, I can't tell any of this shit based on the fact that you're, 180 at like 8% in high school. Like, yeah, you look sick. Like, good job. Like, you're a natural phenom for a natural, grade 11 guy. Like, sick, dude. But it doesn't mean I can predict you're going to be an Olympia caliber guy based on all these other factors, which is going to play into it. Like, everyone, if this is something you're serious about, like, you really should be getting, in my opinion, baseline blood work, see what your health is at. Is it something you could even sustain? Could you even expose yourself to the drugs needed to get to the top and fucking survive and thrive, ideally? Organ imaging, do you have some sort of underlying heart condition? Like, this is the kind of shit that is genetics above and beyond, like, what people perceive as fucking genetics. And this is the kind of stuff I feel like most people should have at baseline before they actually pursue this thing full board. Like, how many guys have, passed early because they had underlying organ issues that was just completely unaddressed? Like, obviously, basic shit like blood pressure, like, some people overlook that too, and it fucks them over. But shit like underlying, like, a genetic heart defect, for example, is that something you're going to figure out when you're just determining, like, do I have the genetics for bodybuilding based on your response to drugs? Like, no. That's something you'll find out a few, however many years down the line when it bites you in the ass. So this is, again, rounding out the genetic response elements of this entire sport. Do more research about yourself, learn if this is something that is actually worth pursuing for you. And in most cases,